2022 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select
Trophy Chase, Arizona.
with the second pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select
Cody Smith, Houston, Texas. The fantasy draft room is now on the clock.
Welcome to the Fantasy Draft Room. I am Chase, and with me, as always, my man Cody. We are wrapping up our free agency cut candidate series with the most important position, I guess.
It's the most important, but it's also kind of like the least important because we have no idea what's going to happen. We can give you some good ideas of where some guys are going in the quarterback, the tight end, the wide receiver landscape. We can give you some guys that we think are going to be cut. You know, we're telling you Keenan Allen's going to be cut. And then we hear today as we're recording this one, Keenan Allen's probably like a lock to be on the Chargers offense, apparently to Tom Telesco. So the running back position, though, it is one of the deepest it is one of the deepest running back positions we've had from the draft class coming into this NFL season. And it's one of the deepest free agency classes that we've had coming into the season. Both of those are going to clash, and I truthfully think that it's going to mean that nobody's good.
You know, if any of you have followed along with any of our rookie mocks that we have been doing, whether it's been Cody and I picking landing after or based on landing spots, or with the Destination Devy mock drafts that we do, there's like 17 running backs going in these drafts in the first 3 rounds. Like there's 17, and then you have this plethora of free agent talent. Like, it's going to collide. There's going to be people in awful situations. There's going to be people that are free agents longer than we expect. So we will jump in here right now with the key ones. But as a reminder, please like and subscribe to the channel. Does wonders for us. And let's kick things off with the obvious. Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs in our tier 1 of free agent running backs.
Yeah, we had to change up how we're doing this episode because there was no way that we could get through all of the free agents, all of the cut candidates, all of the guys. You know, we're not getting into the rookies here. If you want to see those takes, you can go to all of the rookie mocks that we're doing. But even just in the NFL, there's too many guys to talk about all in one episode. But we do want to highlight the guys who are headlining the class, and that definitely is Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs coming off of the RB1 fantasy points per game season last year, a guy who's been severely underrated. He just always comes in at like RB18 and then just always produces us RB1 seasons. Yeah, I don't know how long we're going to do it. We're probably going to do it again this year. What do you think happens with these guys? In my opinion, I'll go first here. I think that Josh Jacobs ultimately gets franchise tagged, in my opinion. And then I think Saquon Barkley, from what I've been hearing lately, I've actually changed my tune on this one. I think he's actually going to test free agency.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs, you mentioned, it does sound like he's willing to play on the franchise tag. Hasn't been a lot of talk about a long-term extension in general with him. I think he physically is ready to just go out there and do it again. He's like, I did it once, just come on, keep feed me the rock, which is awesome for fantasy, terrible for his long-term health. But, I do think he should end up there in Las Vegas and stick around with that team. The Broncos, head coach Sean Payton did say that they're exploring all options, including Josh Jacobs. So there are teams interested. It's just whether or not there's going to be the opportunity to get him. And then Saquon Barkley, I feel like it just depends upon what the Giants can get done with Daniel Jones. If they cannot get a contract extension worked out, which it sounds like there is a difference on, they're going to have to tag, Daniel Jones at that point if they can't figure it out. Otherwise, if they can, he's absolutely going to be a Giant. They'll tag him at the very least and see if there's anyone that's actually willing to trade for him. If they can't work out a long-term deal, it at least buys them more time to figure out what they want to do with Saquon. But the rumor is he might be a walk-in free agent, do whatever he wants, and that sounds kind of crazy.
It does, man, because he's one of the best in the game right now. Yeah. He's up there with the CMC types. So like you said, though, it does sound like from everything that we've heard over the past week of the rumor mill through the Twitter sphere, They're either going to sign Daniel Jones to a long-term contract before the February 15th deadline, or they're going to franchise tag him. They're not going to let Daniel Jones walk.
No.
And I do think that the only way that they re-sign both of them is probably to have Daniel Jones on the long-term deal and Saquon either. I don't know how you work out both of those contracts at the same time. You'd probably have to back-end load one of the contracts and front-end load one of the other ones in terms of guaranteed money over the years. But I think the only way that it really works out in this short of amount of time is just to slap the franchise tag on the Saquon and long-term sign Daniel Jones to either a 3 or 4 year contract. And we'll see. I mean, man, we just saw the last mock that we did was Bijan Robinson to the New York Giants in the first round. So there's an heir apparent waiting in the draft, and we'll see what happens. But Saquon is definitely one that could shake up the entirety of the running back landscape in the NFL if he does end up leaving.
Yeah, and we mentioned it's going to be tough to figure out landing spots because there are a ton of free agents and there are a ton of open jobs. So like realistically, anyone with cap space would be like a candidate for his services. People are going to be interested in at least calling about what the price tag is and what it would take to get them on their team. But the Atlanta Falcons, the Chicago Bears, both have a lot of money and both need additional running back help. Who knows if they'd actually be willing to spend on that position, but again, it's going to be really tough to pick landing spots for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly a fool's errand to even project these. So we're not going to. We're just going to tell you who are the best guys who have the most impact wherever they do wind up. Maybe some of these guys will prognosticate that they could return to their own team because it does sound like a lot of these guys are trending that direction. But if they leave, there's no telling where they go.
Yeah, we'll pull some of those guys up right now. Tier 2 of free agents, you see Tony Pollard, we got Devin Singletary, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, and Kareem Hunt. And as you just mentioned, let's just kind of blow through the ones that we think. I mean, who do you think will re-sign with their team? I mean, it feels like at least 2 of these guys. I think Pollard and Singletary, maybe. That's it.
Singletary is the one that I think could hit the market the most. Pollard, I don't even know if he actually hits free agency. I think he's the one who probably gets the tag there in Dallas. Yeah. So whether that turns into a long-term deal for Pollard, I think that's going to be the issue for them is they don't have a lot of time to put the franchise tag or determine which franchise tag they have on them. So they really can't get all the medicals that they probably want to determine if they want to franchise tag Tony Pollard to try to work out that long-term deal with the broken ankle or the broken fibula, tibula, whichever bone it was in his leg that actually broke. Out of the rest of these guys, I'd say the lowest likely outcome is that Kareem Hunt returns to Cleveland. They just haven't seemed to use him at all over the last 2 years. Really seems like they wasted away a lot of Kareem Hunt's prime that he could have had from the times that we saw him playing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Singletary, I think he's going to find a job, be a plotter somewhere, but I mean, we've seen him in one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL, and he really didn't ever do anything for us in fantasy. And that seems to kind of convert to a lot of these guys, with Miles Sanders being another one of them. Got outplayed by Gainwell at the end of the year. David Montgomery got outplayed by Khalil Herbert at times throughout the season as well before he went on IR. So I do think all of these guys have jobs and are going to be fantasy relevant next year. It's just going to be determining what that amount is for fantasy football teams.
Yeah, and this is why it's hard to figure out. Like, these guys are going to want money, right? Like, a lot of these guys are going to want a decent payday, maybe some more than others. You mentioned Pollard getting the tag. Singletary doesn't seem like a guy that's going to fetch a big contract, but Miles Sanders did have a good season last year. He was top 10 in rushing yards last year. Had what we might think, consider his breakout. He's going to want to get paid. But with all these other free agents that we're going to get into soon, and those 17 plus incoming running backs, it's kind of a scary situation. There's going to be a weird balance between how much money these guys want and are asking for, what teams are willing to give them. And so I feel like early on in free agency, the guys that get contracts and sign you're going to find out like those are the ones that are going to accept a little bit less. It might be more of a team friendly deal, so to speak. And so I could see Singletary returning. I could see some of these guys just taking the contract because they're very aware of what's happening right now. They're very aware that the NFL views the running back position as replaceable. They're very aware that the NFL draft is loaded at the position. So I feel like the ones that are bag chasing are going to have to wait till the draft potentially to get the contract that they're looking for.
Yeah, you hope for a lot of these guys that the agency that they're with is actually, realistic about what the market is going to be this year. And they
Yeah.
can just say, hey, like it's going to be beneficial for you to just say, I'll take a little bit of a pay cut over what I'm probably expecting from what historically the running back second contract has been, because you're not going to get that. You're probably almost going to get a decrease in pay from what you've been producing even over your rookie contract for a lot of these guys. If you want to re-sign and actually have a guaranteed job and a guaranteed workload, it's awful for these guys and I hate it, but just the running back position is just so devalued right now, both in dynasty and in the NFL. A lot of these guys know that they can just kind of replace the talent in the fourth round year over year. It's kind of like the San Francisco approach to the running back position where they just draft guys. It's the New England approach where they just draft two guys every draft and they can always backfill the position. It's not a high market tier anymore. You're not paying LaDainian Tomlinsons. You're not paying Ezekiel Elliott's anymore. These type of contracts just don't go out unless you are the Derrick Henry CMC types. And we haven't seen that emerge in the last couple of years.
And this tier ain't it either. So it's
No,
like,
it's
you
not.
know, Pollard and Sanders, I could see the ones fetching the most money. I could see Kareem Hunt wanting a decent payday because he's done it before. Like you mentioned earlier, did get misused a little bit in Cleveland and probably feels like he still has a lot left in the tank. Monty had a couple good seasons this year. So we'll see what kind of contracts they're looking for. They will all have jobs. We can promise you that. Like they will all have jobs in the NFL. The issue is going to be what backfield they are in and is there somebody else? Like there's a good chance some of these guys are going to be in legitimate timeshares, and for like the name of Singletary and Hunt, like there's a chance that they're legitimate backups and you're just hoping that they're getting like 30%, 35% of the work on their team.
And I know he was on his, I believe, third contract whenever it happened, but like any of these guys could be Melvin Gordon next year. That's the fear. That is why if you're truly asking for dynasty advice, I'd say liquidate any of these guys within these tiers that you can move and gain a piece of capital, like a second round pick, even just for any of the guys in the same tier, just do it. Because some of these guys are just, they might have a job, but they can easily lose the job that they get at any moment.
Yeah, Pollard's the only one with that exception. I feel like Pollard, if I'm selling Pollard, I want a first or close to it. I would be willing to wait for him. I'd wait till things get figured out with his foot, all that kind of stuff, what they do, if they do sign him long term, tag him, how that situation works out. But everyone else on this list for sure, try to get out on. I think a second. I don't know if you're going to get that for Hunt and Singletary, but seconds for what Sanders and Monty and re-roll on them. And
honestly,
then,
if you can swap between the tier and just pick up thirds, you're probably doing that.
Yeah.
And like you said, Pollard would be the one who I would put up into this tier 1 category if we were, to redo this. But the injury does give me concerns right now. I don't think he's anywhere near in terms of just dynasty value along these guys, but in terms of like the free agent market, I think he's a little bit lower in with a lot of these guys than he is between the Jacobs and Saquon.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you there. Like we said, it's going to be. I'm so excited for free agency, man. I'm ready for the wild, wild west. Like it's going to be chaos, not only with trades in general at the quarterback position. Free agency is going to kick off. We're going to see where some of these guys get signed or don't get signed. Just can't wait. Can't freaking wait, man.
Exactly. I mean, we're not trying to predict any, running back trades, but we saw CMC get traded last year. Like there could actually be some high leverage trades. I mean, maybe a Saquon or a Josh Jacobs gets signed or
Tag
tagged and
trade,
traded,
yeah.
man. Like that would be absolutely awesome to see. Whatever the case is, we're going to be full of running back news and full of running back Twitter sphere hype for all of the offseason. So it is definitely a market that you can capitalize on, though. All of these guys, whenever they get their hype, they go to a different spot. Like, so let's say any of them goes to a different spot before the NFL draft happens. They're like, oh my God, he's going to be the smash. He's going to be the lead workhorse back here. Immediately sell that guy
Yep.
because there is almost no chance that they don't bring in another guy behind him. Maybe it happens, but it's not likely.
Yeah, I'm willing to take the chance on just selling high on the rumors and just getting out while I can. And and we pull up here the tier 3 list, and it's just the good players, right? But Damian Harris, Rashad Penny, Donta Foreman, Jeff Wilson, Jamal Williams, Raheem Mostert, P. Ryan McKinnon, Lat Murray, and Miles Gaskin. There are some that are a little higher on this tier than others. Who do you think has a legitimate chance of getting a RBBC type of role, or maybe even a lead role?
The two that I'm probably the highest on here are not the two that actually produced as much last year, in my opinion. So the ones that we remember, I think, are going to be Jamal Williams and Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah.
Because Jamal Williams had the 13 touchdowns that he rushed in, and like 8 of them were from the 1 yard line. And they're already saying that they're trying to bring him back. There's mutual interest for him to come back. And I think that's very detrimental to the DeAndre Swift shares. And they're already projected to draft a guy in like the 3rd round. Not a guy that I'm really looking for in the future. I don't think that 1 yard touchdown rate is ever going to be replicated again, to be honest. But he's going to be a guy there. Jerick McKinnon, he could easily be replaced in the draft as well. There's other pass catching wide receiver, pass catching running backs that could replace him in that offense too. We'll see. I think he's going on his 31 season at this point. So
For McKinnon?
there's a little bit of concerns there. The ones that I do think have the most chance to really be a central focus factor in their offense are Rashad Penny for the time that he's healthy, because we've seen that that's probably never going to happen for an entire 17 games. And then Deontay Foreman would be the one that I'd actually like the most, probably out of this entire list.
Yeah, Damian Harris, he's had some highlights as well during his time with the Patriots. I just don't know what kind of market there's actually going to be for Damian Harris's services. So, one to monitor, I guess. Donta Foreman sounds like the Panthers want to bring him back. They've shown how they can use him in that offense, and he's super effective and efficient with it. So if that does happen, excited for Donta Foreman. Rashad Penny, as you mentioned, I feel like he's the most talented name on this list right here. The issue is always injury. You just cannot stay healthy, and it sucks. It really does, because he flashes, and you're like, oh yeah, there's the first round talent. Crazy enough. Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert have already been linked to get re-signed potentially to Miami. That does not exclude them from taking a running back, though. There's a real good chance. Raheem Mostert's already in his 30s. Jeff Wilson's kind of proven to be just a guy. He can produce what he needs to in that offense, but I would not doubt them rolling into the season with Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, and whatever 2nd, 3rd round running back that the Dolphins decide to draft. Otherwise, Mostert, and even Mostert doesn't seem like a guy that's going to get a job outside of San Francisco or Miami. He's just been linked to that system for so long. It would be kind of tough for me to see that happening. Jerick McKinnon feels the same way. I feel like Kansas City would be the one to resign him, or Washington now with Bieniemy, right? He fits that system. He's older. Not a lot of teams are going to be willing to really invest in him, but McKinnon could also go to Miami because he has ties to that same 49ers offense. He was there, got hurt. So fun situations, but again, fantasy relevant. I don't know.
I do wonder if Mike McDaniel was in that offense at the time that Jerick McKinnon was brought in. I'm not sure about that exact timeline. However, the one that I'm thinking about is Raheem Mostert that you brought up. Both Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, both of those guys kind of play into the same role for that San Francisco 49ers, the Miami Dolphins' new offense that they played in last year. There's two teams that just got significant San Francisco 49ers pieces added into their front office or their head coach positions, which are the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans. And the Tennessee Titans could very, very much so use a better backup than probably what Hassan Haskins is, even though I have a couple of Hassan Haskins shares out there just in case Derrick Henry gets hurt. Don't think he's that elite of a prospect or anything like that, that he's actually going to command a workload if that opportunity does present itself for him. So they could use a backup. And then you've got Dameon Pierce in Houston, and he's really the only one. I mean, are you going to roll Rex Burkhead and Dario Goombawale out there again? I'd have my concerns if that was their plan going forward. So, I mean, hell, if you're willing to let Rex Burkhead at 33 roll out there, why not give the rock to Raheem Mostert to Jeff Wilson for a little bit alongside Dameon Pierce as well?
I could see that. It just seems like they're a team that is looking for younger guys, and most likely they would draft one, but wouldn't rule it out, right? Like you're looking for locker room guys, familiarity with the system, somebody that can go out there, take a few carries, hit the hole that you need, or do the job that they need them to do in that offense. And Jeff Wilson is another one that could be a possibility there for Houston or for Tennessee as well, just to kind of spell or be the backup, be that locker room guy. Samaje Perine sounds like he's a guy that's just going to end up back in Cincinnati, but if he does hit the open market, he's a guy that's probably going to be a free agent until after the NFL draft, where he can kind of find a job, find a hole on a roster, and fill a serviceable role on a team. Fantasy relevant? I don't think so. Lat Murray, he could be, as you said earlier, he's dust. He's
he is a fossil that we have dug up and resurfaced.
Sean Payton, with Lat Murray being in Denver last year and Sean Payton being the new head coach, that's about the only situation I could see. Like they're like, all right, like Denver's got a hurt starting running back with Javonte. Let's bring in Lat Murray. Let's just let him. He may not have any relevance at all, be the third stringer, fourth stringer, but I could see that. I just don't know what you're expecting out of these guys. And I feel like, as you mentioned earlier with Jamal, I don't see that same touchdown production. I don't see Raheem having the same season. Donta could. Like, what are you selling these guys for? What are you trying to do if you had these guys on your roster?
Was just about to ask you the same thing. I'll throw it back at you. Would you trade any of these guys on this list for the 301 to 306 in the 12 team right now?
I feel like I would draw a line. 301 to 306.
That's early third. We're just going to call it early third. Because there's some guys on here I would much rather have than like the 312, right?
Yeah.
That's just another dart throw, and I'd rather have a proven dart throw than the rookie dart throw that's a 6th round draft pick.
Today, so because we don't know landing spots, and we don't know really how deep this class is, we like some of the talent, but we know some of these players are going to end up in bad situations. I think I would draw the line. Like Jamal, Donta Foreman, Rashad Penny, and Damian Harris, I feel like I would want like that back end second. I know it's only a few picks, but it does matter.
Just has the 2 on it. It's
it
like
has the 2 on it
instead of being at $2.
So I would ideally like to get a second. Anyone else, sure, third gone. No issue with it. You give me multiple thirds for some of these guys, there's a good chance I would strongly consider. Like I feel like if they were, you give me the 301 and 307 type thing, I would be looking at that and be like, I could get 2 darts at the same player, right? Like I could take 2 chances to get one of these guys, but
You honestly give me 3.6, 3.12 for any of these guys. I think
That's
I'd
true. You
take
give me
it.
2/3 for any of these guys. You're right. I wouldn't be done. I was like thinking, give me a high one and a low one. I'm good with that. But
No, I'll repop that into
yeah.
the market at some point. Just give me the liquid asset that isn't going to go to absolute zero whenever he's Ronald Jones on the Chiefs next year.
Is there anyone that you do want to back in second for, or are you good with just taking that 301 to 306 range?
Uh, Foreman and Penny are probably the only two. Penny has a little bit of hype around him right now
Yeah.
in some circles. So if people are past the injury concern, also is going to differ between like a best ball and a lineup league. But really, honestly, the only ones I wouldn't sell for that early third are probably Deontay. Honestly, it's probably just Deontay. I'd almost just take it for Penny too, just because of his injury history.
You may
I think
never
I
get another
just
chance with Penny. Like you
you
just
you
might not.
seriously might not. Like why is a
Yeah,
team going
man.
to actually pay him what he's worth for those 4 weeks? Because while it's useful to us for fantasy for like spot start systems, it's not worth it for a fantasy or for a NFL team to actually be rostering him all 17 weeks and just throw him on IR and clog an IR spot.
Yeah. You've got me thinking more about this. Got me reconsidering already on the spot.
Foreman's my only one. We'll see with Jamal Williams. If they don't draft another running back, then I might throw Jamal Williams up into that point. Everybody else, I don't care.
I feel like that's exactly why I would want a second for Jamal Williams, because he seems like he's a guy that's going to sign early in free agency. Like there's going to be a mutual agreement, whether they bring in and draft somebody or not. But like that would be like the time for Jamal Williams. You wait for him to sign a 2-year deal, 3-year deal with no dead cap that third year, whatever it is, and then you sell the idea of what last year was. And I think you could get a second for him. But I feel like the real way to maneuver that is to use Jamal Williams as a second in a deal, right? Like package him with some other things where people are like, okay, he's not the centerpiece, he's not the focal point of the trade, but you can use him as an additional piece to move up or move down, move around however you'd like. At different positions.
Yeah, I mean, being realistic with it, you're not going to get anything better than like the fucking 2.9 for Jamal Williams ever. Not. So honestly, for me, I'm fine with cashing out. But if you want to play the long game, grind the trade market a little bit more, I think you can technically get that like back end second value out of him, which admittedly, like I said earlier, the 299 price is definitely not worth the 301 price. So there's a different market there. So if you can sell it, go ahead and sell it.
Any last things you want to touch on with this fun group?
I think the only one we really haven't touched on is the gas man, Myles Gaskin, and I don't have any hope for him, to be honest. with this market that's out there this year, hopefully he winds up as an RB3 on a roster. He's probably going to be like deep 12-man, 35 deep roster relevant. Other than that, you hope you get 1 or 2 more starts out of Myles Gaskin for the rest of his career. That's probably it.
Yeah, if you didn't sell him 2 years ago when everything was going really well for Myles Gaskin, you missed your chance. Like that was the window. So let's get away from the free agents at this point and look at some free agents to be. Gus Edwards, he is on the final year of his 2-year, $9 million contract, 5.6 dead cap, 1.25 dead cap. So they can save $4 million, a little over $4 million on him. Makes sense. Like, they might keep him just because he's still cheaper, but hey, you can cut him and go draft a 3rd round, 4th round guy and save some money if they need to.
Yeah, truthfully for me, I look at this one. The good thing for them is they are in actually very good cap space. So they're sitting 27 million below the cap. So if they want to run this same running back core out there again, they can. But I feel like, I don't know about you, but I feel like we're on the same wavelength here. Lamar is not going to take another snap for the Baltimore Ravens again.
Nope, he's not.
And if you do bring in a guy like Jacoby Brissett to run this offense or Andy Dalton to run this offense because they don't want to pay a top 10 or they don't want to pay a top tier quarterback, the way that you fix that is you draft a guy like Bijan Robinson in the first. And if you have to cut Gus Edwards so that he's not the third guy on the roster and not have to pay him, because you can literally, like, with that $4 million, you can pay Bijan.
Here's the thing. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're not wrong at all. The thing is if they don't re-sign Lamar, there's no need for them to get rid of Gus. Even if they draft Bijan, Monken's systems, like the way Monken has worked, I know it was more Kirby Smart-esque with how they use running backs. They like to use 3. The Ravens in the past have used 3. Like, it seems like it would just make logical sense for them to keep him. But it's a candidate, right? You can clear cap space. And I feel like that's why it's part of the conversation is you can actually clear cap space if they need to, if Lamar does stick around. So it is a name to watch out for sure.
It's a cut candidate. And then you're also probably going to acquire future assets. You're probably going to acquire another first in this draft, probably another first and a second in this draft, if I had to guess. And so then you're looking at 2-3 rookie contracts that you now have to pay that are actually going to, accrue a little bit of a cap hit to you. Then you can actually go out and sign some defensive assets, which is what they feel like they've been lacking, because that is their identity as the Baltimore Ravens. They want to build through the defense. They don't really. Why we think Lamar's not going to be there is they want to build through the defense and then just have a game manager at quarterback.
Yep.
Does it really fit the Monken offense? Maybe not. We'll see. I think it could still work with a Monken offense. I mean, he just had a game manager in Stetson Bennett in Georgia for the last couple of years. So did pretty well with it there. We'll see, but not a name that we need to spend too much time on. But Gus Edwards, if you want to save $4.5 million dead cap, yeah, he can be gone.
Another one that can absolutely be gone. Didn't make it with Miami. He got replaced by Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert, then gets traded to the Broncos. They do have a running back in front of him, but with no dead cap, it seems like he's just going to be a cap casualty. New head coaching system. I don't think he really fits what they want to do, but we'll see. I just feel like if you can save almost $6 million, he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a pass catching weapon in Arizona back whenever he was actually had a little bit of hype in the fantasy community. So there's maybe a little bit there, but
if he's on the team, you can talk about that.
Why do that whenever you can draft Kenny McIntosh in the 4th round?
Yep.
So they've already talked about bringing other guys into this offense at the running back position, I believe.
Yep.
And so I don't see why you wouldn't just cut $6 million dead cap. I hope to God Chase Edmonds lands somewhere. I think I might have 1 share left in all of my dynasty leagues. I unfortunately was caught up in that. Oh, he's the one that Miami paid for this $12 million contract. And sometimes you don't want to chase the bag in free agency. We saw that over the last 2 years with guys like Chase Edmonds and Nelson Aguilar. So don't always chase the money.
Yep. All right. So we don't need to save much time or spend much time on that one. Not really this one either. Nyheim Hines, he has 4.8 million cap hit this year, 5.4 next year. However, there's 0 dead cap in either year. So technically it's like, I guess $9-10 million off the books total, but hey, it seems like he's going to be gone. It sounds like Buffalo wants to give James Cook a little bit more workload. Hines didn't really do much or impact much when Singletary was there. It seems like they're going to look to replace Singletary or bring him back and just add to that backfield versus, I guess Hines does do special teams things, so there's a good chance he could still be there.
I almost think you'd have to rework this contract just to be a special teams guy, though, man. Like, I don't know why whenever you drafted James Cook and then expand James Cook's role, maybe he just started like coming on at the end of the season and actually like picking up the offense. They didn't think he was going to do that at the beginning at the trade deadline. And that's why they brought Nyheim Hines in case he couldn't do that down the stretch.
Yeah.
I don't know what the reason was, though. I just looked up the trade. They traded a 6th round pick in Zach Moss, though, for Nyheim Hines. So, like, what's really the sunk cost there? That's almost nothing. That's just a wash. So, if it was just a 1-year rental to see if Nyheim Hines could return 2 touchdowns in the in the comeback game for the Bills. I mean, I think that was probably worth it almost for his 6th and Zach Moss. But yeah, just a guy to be careful of, because you're typically not looking like a Nyheim Hines to be out of a backfield. But if he is, then you're only looking at James Cook, and I assume Duke Johnson's going to be a free agent there again, because I can't imagine that he was on anything longer than a 1-year deal. So it's just James Cook in that backfield. And so that's a prime landing spot for another running back to go to.
Yep, another running back. Then to draft one, it just seems like Nyheim Hines is going to be buried on that depth chart if he's there. But it seems like he's had kind of a tough go. He flashed in Indy, and then after he got traded, I don't know if it just didn't fit. So we'll see. I would kind of hope for him to get a reset somewhere else just for fantasy purposes, right?
Yeah. I would like it for the couple of shares that I'd have. I'd like it a lot. Now we're getting into the big names, though. These are the guys that could be cut that are actually going to shake up the dynasty market. Yes. Joe Mixon is one guy. We've been talking about it with all the Bengals. I feel like we brought one up every single one of these episodes. I think Hayden Hurst, T. Higgins has also been brought up on here. The only thing we haven't brought up is quarterback, because obviously they're not cutting Joe Burrow or trading him. That's never happening in a lifetime. He's probably going to get a Patrick Mahomes-like deal. But now we're to the running back position, and we got another guy that could be out. And he's apparently a lot more likely to be out than T. Higgins, after their GM just came out and said, find your own damn wide receiver today at the combine. Feels like if they want to sign anybody on their defense, they're going to have to cut Joe Mixon and save, $7.2 million in cap savings if they cut him. I don't know what the post-June 1st dead cap savings is. We'll see if they can maybe finagle that one. Joe Mixon could be a guy that's a cap casualty and one of the best. I mean, he'd probably be up there in tier 1 for me if he was to hit the free agency open market.
Yeah, he had an interesting year last year on the field where showed signs of slowing down. They can save $7 million, like you mentioned, and there have been rumors of him actually getting cut. So if he does hit the open market, again, it's going to be such a balance, right? Because he's going from a $12 to $13 million salary, and he's going to have to take what's given to him. Like, people aren't going to be giving him a $10 million contract. And I think that's where the struggle is, where it's like teams are just going to look at him and be like, well, why would we want to sign you when we can use our 4th round draft pick on a couple of dudes? Like, it's going to be such a weird situation for these guys. And, we have a couple other names coming up and some guys we're going to talk about too, that I know they'll get starting gigs. It's just going to be a matter of where and are they willing to accept a lesser paying deal? So if he's able to take a $8 million, take $8 million total, for next year, short-term contracts, like, he's going to get that Melvin Gordon type deal where it's 2 years, $16 million type thing, and hope that things work out, because if it doesn't, he's going to be a free agent again.
Honestly, I think it'd be less than that. You were bringing up the Melvin Gordon contract, and I just want to look up another one of the guys that we're not going to touch on here, because we just heard the news that he's pretty much guaranteed to be released, in Leonard Fournette. Looked up his contract. He signed a 3x21, and a lot of that's not guaranteed. Only like 14 of that is guaranteed. And so you're really signing like a 2x14 million deal. And so most of these guys, I think, even though I'm calling Joe Mixon like a tier 1, it's tier 1 almost in name, not in pay, because you're probably looking at max like a $6 to $7 million a year contract. You're going to be taking a pay cut if you hit free agency. And so I think if these guys are smart about it, I'd almost just say, hey, just cut my pay and I'll just stay here for $7 million. That way I don't actually have to compete in free agency.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some interesting things. I mean, that's why the rumor of Joe Mixon, you mentioned Leonard Fournette as well, another one who was rumored to the GM saying in the same day, oh yeah, we can see him having a workhorse role for the next 2 years, and 2 to 3 years in the NFL, to the
Yeah, he's
Buccaneers are
cap
going to be
casualty.
cutting him on March 15th. And it's like, what? And it sounds like it's a mutual thing. What's crazy is, they're going to cut him on March 15th is what it sounds like. So the first day of the league year, if they cut him post June 1, there would only be 3.5 million. So they'd save almost 5 million in dead cap. But since they're not, they're only going to get about 3.5. So a little bit of cap savings, I guess, but it sounds like he's gone as well. So Joe Mixon and Leonard Fournette are going to be bodies on the free agent market. I think Mixon's going to command more money for sure. But they're older running backs and they want a payday. Like they want money.
Exactly, man. Like you could cut Joe Mixon, eat the 5.5 million, pay Leonard Fournette 5 million, which is probably most he's going to get in the free agent market, and still be below what the cap hit is going to be for Joe Mixon this year.
Yep, you can. And the other spot we talked about off air for Leonard Fournette is he could be a Mark Ingram for the Denver Broncos. Like that, it sounds like Leonard Fournette wants carries. He complained about it at the end of last year with Rachaad White eating into his workload. It sounds like he wants to ring chase, but he also wants a workload. And I know you can't ring chase in Denver right now. That team is not quite ready. However, you could probably sell him on the fact like, yeah, you're going to get touches. Javante's out for a little bit of the year. We'll even, ease him in. So you're going to get the workload, and they have some cap space that they could spend on a running back for a short-term period. And they've shown that they have no problem bringing in Lat Murray and Melvin Gordon after the age of 28. So that seems like a primo Leonard Fournette spot. Joe Mixon, however, it's going to be one to monitor, man.
Yeah, we'll see. The old trope is the Cincinnati Bengals don't cut players, but the Cincinnati Bengals have never been this good. I think that is actually something to take into consideration, where they actually have to, they have to pay pieces on their defense to keep all of this unit together. If they want to pay T. Higgins, if they want to pay Joe Burrow, they're going to have to find some pieces somewhere, if they don't want to become basically like the Los Angeles Chargers on defense. So they're going to have to find it somewhere. And I think it will eventually actually be through Joe Mixon. Let's get to our last one here that we actually have a slideshow for. We'll mention a couple other names at the end of this, but Dalvin Cook is the last one that I think we have to bring up here. 2021 signed a 5-year, $63 million contract for a running back. Woo! That is a nice contract. Unfortunately, not a lot of it was guaranteed, it looks like. So it'd already be a cap casualty in 2023, getting $14.1 million cap hit and a $6.2 million dead cap, saving them roughly $8 million if they choose to do so. This is one I don't think is going to happen, but I at least wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, it's definitely less likely, but it's notable because of next year as well, right? 2024, you see 15.6 mil, 3.1, so you can save $12.5 million next year if they do decide to keep him on for this year. So he's just one to monitor in general because of what you've talked about before, and on a previous episode where we talked about the running back cliff data. And Dalvin Cook, this is his running back cliff year. So this might be your prime Dalvin Cook sell time. If you look at your team and you think you're competing and contending and you need Dalvin Cook, great. If you don't, then maybe you should sell him while you can, because this might be the last year in Minnesota. I'm not saying he's going to be dead for fantasy purposes, but it's going to be scary next year with a 27, 28-year-old running back who just got cut and is in free agency. So we'll see what happens with Dalvin Cook. I'm with you. I don't think he gets cut this year, but it's just a situation to monitor going forward where you could see a major decrease in his fantasy value.
Yeah, and the issue with, the issues combined with the contract and the cliff data, I don't even know if you could pull a first for Dalvin Cook right now with the current running back landscape that we're in. Like, you might pull the 111, 112 for Dalvin Cook. And that seems crazy, but that's the landscape we're sitting in today.
Yeah, like I start thinking about some of the names, and it just depends. Again, draft capital landing spot for these running backs. But It's like, would you rather have Kendre Miller or Dalvin Cook, Devon A-Chain or Dalvin Cook? I mean, I know some people are going to say Zach Evans or Dalvin Cook, but like, name a
Whatever
drafted early running back, whatever.
whatever the top 4 running backs are in the class, I would probably rather have than Dalvin Cook.
Easily. Yep.
Man, as long as the landing spot isn't like they're running behind Derrick Henry or something like that. So,
Right. So,
it's going to be very, very interesting running back market. If you do want to bring up another couple of names that could be cut candidates, I believe there was Nyheim Hines that could be a cut candidate. Aaron Jones reworked his contract recently to not be a cut candidate because he would have been. There's a couple of other names out there that are a little bit smaller, but like the rest of the market, honestly, it almost doesn't matter. If you can de-risk yourself out of the running back market right now, I'd almost do it. There is the flip side that we've also pondered of, hey, can I just send out thirds for some of these old vets? Like, just buy some incredibly depreciated assets right now that have been known producers for the last 3 years. Can I go out and buy a Alvin Kamara for a back end second because of the suspension concerns? Like, I think you could do that in a couple of spots. The running back market is wild right now. It's the wild, wild west. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But if you are bold enough to stake your claim on one of these guys, it can pay off, but just know the risks that are going to be coming with it.
yeah, we talked about the other honorable mention of Leonard Fournette. The one that you did bring up, it seems unlikely based on how they've talked about him, but Derrick Henry, if they post June 1 designate him for a cut, he's only $5 million against the cap for dead cap, and so they'd save $11 million. So that's a chunk of change. I don't think that's going to happen, but it is one to monitor. Interestingly enough.
If they do it, I think we also talked about this one on the quarterback show. It would make sense that they'd blow the whole thing up, cut Tannehill as well, and just go into their full tank mode. But with the moves they've made at the head coaching positions, it doesn't seem like they're going to do it.
Yeah, so I think they're going to run it back for one more year and give it one last try. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up. Any last things you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, unless you want to talk about the other free agents of Justin Jackson, Kenyon Drake, Mark Ingram, Benny Snell, Marlon Mack. You know, we can really dig into those if you want to, or we can, turn it in and go to bed here.
Yeah, let's get out of here. All right. Again, please like and subscribe and let us know what your thoughts are on this running back class, how you would be handling some of these guys. Would you be trading them, buying them? I know it's February. I guess it's March 1st today. So we are in March now. Let us know what your thoughts are on how you're handling this running back room. Thank you again for joining us here in the Fantasy Draft Room.